you hardly will find issues of violence. Dr. Akiode, what did you find out in terms of the conduct of voters themselves and also security agencies, agents in this election?
Well, I think that, just as Izzy said, I think we should commend the people of Osun State. The political consciousness is quite high, and if you look at, by 8 o'clock, there are quite a number of people who are on the queue, waiting to vote. And you see that almost around Oshogbo, Ikirun, Iragbiji, and some other places, which shows that people are ready, to actually cast their votes and to do their civic responsibility. And for the security agents too, they were there in good numbers, like 4 per polling units in some places, except in some places where they have, very few. But then I was also going to say that if you look at the number of those who collected their PVC in the state, is quite high too. And I think that those are some of the lessons that we are taking out from here. If you notice in most of the billboards of the political parties, they are also campaigning that people should go and pick their PVC. And that's why we saw that quite almost like 71% of PVCs were collected, in Osun State. So meaning that, to a large extent, they have some understanding, of what it is, to vote and what probably voting would mean to them. So we should commend them for that.
Again, there were some policies made by INEC. The issues of do not use mobile phones and a rearrangement of the cubicle for voting. Did that work magic?
Well, if it's clear that, like I said, as an institution responding to, challenges, issues that are coming up, I think that they reconfigured the polling units in such a way that it enhanced the secrecy of the ballot. There is also the way in which it's configured is that you can now vote without somebody knowing where. And then much more importantly is that you saw a more, in terms of human administration of the election, you saw their staff showing understanding that they understand what the issues are. And people generally too didn't take, in many places that we observed, they didn't take their phones to the place. But what is key for us is that in terms of the punctuality index, watching the vote observers were telling us that 96% of polling units were running fully by 9 o'clock. And that in 100% of the polling units, the card reader was available. This is important to put out because most times people just think that, when we say these things, that election is getting better. There are people who want a pushback, who can't come to terms with it. We lived in a country where, not just far away now, by that same 9 o'clock, we'll still be talking about materials not getting to 50% of the places to hold elections. So we need to continue to get INEC, push them, much more to come to a point where the issue of logistics, the issue of, and one clear thing that they did also that was important is that they attached a registration area technical assistant in every center to make sure that if any card reader malfunctions, there's a quick response. And those introductions are things that we need to
We'll go back to Lagos now, but just in final words, your assessment, good, very good, generally?
Well, it's situational because we don't have the whole picture. So we can only talk about voting and accreditation, and then later this evening we'll put out this thing on collation of results. But for the other process, voting and accreditation and voting, for me, it's impressive. It went very well. And then the whole security, for most of the places, we didn't see violence.
All right.
Yeah.
Dr. Akiode, if this is a test case for 2019, a good test case?
I think it's quite an improvement, particularly with respect to INEC being able to address the logistical problems that they normally have, before. I think there's some kind of improvement.
Interesting. Those are very interesting perspectives that you have brought.
Every election has its own dynamics because we shouldn't continue this narrative of, this one is a test for 2019 because 2019 is a general election, a big country with incredible topography, and the situations will be different. We need to put our thinking cap on how to engage
and
that
make
one
2019
much better, because if we use this one, the curve of election administration in Nigeria goes up and down. We can get to 2019 thinking that we have gotten it right, and then
things boomerang now. Well, I must sincerely thank you, Dr. Abiola Akiode Afolabi, Chairman of Transition Monitoring Group, and also Mr. Ezenwa Nwago is the Chairman of Partners for Electoral Reforms. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Well, Gimba, you've heard those perspectives. Vote by the technicality to all of these exercise and this process. We're still monitoring the collation, and in the end, maybe at some point in the early hours of tomorrow, we may have an understanding of who will become the next governor of Osun State. Gimba.
Thank you so much indeed, Sheung, even though your words are that those vote buying has become something more sophisticated than we can ever imagine. But that's where we're going to take it up from now. I'm being joined in the studios by Mr. Adelaja Udukoya. He's the Associate Professor, Department of Political Science, University of Lagos. I want to thank you so much indeed from my extreme right. Also, Innocent Chuku, very regular face here on Channels Television, analysing political outcomes. Indeed, is an election security analyst. Many thanks indeed for joining me, as well as Liboros Oshoma, a lawyer. Always a pleasure having all of you gentlemen to have a robust discussion on what has happened in Osun State. But let me start with you, Professor. What's your assessment looking at the process so far?
Thank you so much. Like we've had, I think this is a lot of improvement from what we saw in Ekiti. But again, we must always be careful, because Eze actually make a very important observation. Over the years, what we have seen is that we have a funny curve in our electoral processes. And again, there's equally this danger of actually trying to use a micro-election to
judge the biggest,
particularly because if Ekiti and Osun, you see this tendency of over-militarization of the whole process. I was talking to a colleague on campus who is on a sabbatical in Osun State. He said he got so jittery, he has to leave. Because anywhere you move, somebody is stopping you. Where are you from? Where are you going? And things like that. We won't have the benefit of all of this at the 2019 election. And I think we are getting to a state that, of course, there's always this assumption that we're not learning anything and things like that. But